in is here's what we're starting with. Yes, each year initially revenues and expenses will not match, but we're looking at then bringing down that $1 million from the connection fees to, in those early years, make up for the differences, because the early years is, first of all, where we're actually paying for the construction, and bringing that down based on the fact that we already have to begin with this $1 million+ from the connection fees. And then as that comes down, the rates increase, there are some additional new connections that are built in here, and again, it's not a high number, and also the built-in increases in the commodity charges to eventually bring that to where the revenues do offset the expenses, and by that time we'll have brought it down from the initial $1 million+ from the connection fees.
You're looking at operation and maintenance costs of $12,375 a year that you have all the way over in the first column, top left,
right,
fourth one down. I'm just trying to make all that work, because right now the utility cost that we have is something that we're not even tackling principle-wise with the users that we have. And I've taken a pretty good amount of heat for that, because it's utilities in the ground, heard about it tonight, that we need to figure out how we're going to pay for. I'm not opposed to putting water, but taking on another system, putting infrastructure in the ground and then paying for it is something that at this point in time, I don't know how we would do that. And I guess my fundamental question is, do we as the county want to take over all the infrastructure inside the subdivision, or is that theirs and we provide water to them as a user and then charge accordingly to pay for what it costs us to get it there? I mean, those are some fundamental decisions, because they dictate cost to us as well as cost to the users and the cost to everybody else in the county. I mean, has anybody thought about a $77 water bill a month?
Well, again, I don't think they're going to be looking at a $77 water bill.
If we didn't do connection fees, if we said that was their system, and we said, okay,
Sanitary district?
Make it a sanitary district, it's theirs, and we say it's 55, I mean, to pay back it's going to cost, I see 2.6, we've talked about 3.2 to put it in the ground. It's somewhere in that, but we'll call it $3 million. Looking at your amortization and looking at what it's going to cost, and I'm looking at the gross expense, which is what we'd have to cover because that's interest and everything else going with it. We're looking at least at the beginning of $55 a month for just infrastructure cost. I'm just looking at a way that the people that need water get it, because we can't absorb any more infrastructure costs. We physically don't have the dollars. And in the situation that we're in, borrowing money for that kind of a project will affect anything else that we will need to do or have to do in the very near future. And that's truly my dilemma, Mr. Chairman, is not that I don't recognize the need, it's recognizing the cost, borrowing that money that goes against our debt, and then how we start to pay back that principal without it coming out of the rest of us already, because we already have a pretty sizable infrastructure cost that we're not touching except out of the general fund now.
Well, and again, that's why the figures presented here do not include anything else from the remainder of the utility fund. This is simply based on that piece.
I guess what I'd like to do is let the homeowners look at what the options are. They retain their infrastructure, they say it's in good shape. And I think this is a discussion we need to have, and then look at the monthly charge. What are people going to say if they see a $77 water bill a month? I don't know.
Would it be appropriate for me to address that, sir?
It's up to the chair.
That's fine, as long as the board doesn't have.
We have discussed, as the non-members of our board, and we have talked to many of the property owners. We've had discussions at our meetings, not unlike this, with the property owners. And what we have discussed till now, and what Ms. Dworshak has has presented to us is basically everyone understands that when we get hooked up, they're going to have the cost for the water of $20 to $25 a month. Everybody also understands that they'll have the connection fee to pay, and that will be paid over whatever time period the board decides, but we're hoping it'll be in the 5 to 7 year time frame. So they'll be paying, let's say, $22 a month for water, and then a fixed amount to pay the $2,800 over, let's say, a 5-year period, whatever that comes out to, you know, $45 a month or something. So for the 5-year period, they'll be paying $22 plus the extra $45, and at the end of that period, when they paid their $2,800 for their individual connection fee, then they just pay. Then each individual owner, we just pay for the commodity, for the water.
Do you understand where I'm coming from, is leaving that as it's your own water system? We provide water to you, and what happens is that the infrastructure cost to get there is what gets paid for over, I mean, $55 a month, and it goes up $1 a year for some time.
We have presented it to our members as the county taking over our current system, which is what he and I have discussed at some length.
And I'm posing something a little different that takes us, we can only have so much debt. And then, I mean, we all know that we're at that line, getting close to it, and if anything else were to happen and we had to go borrow money, it's going to be tough. And with the economic situation, we don't have it. What I'm proposing, or at least would like to discuss, is if the infrastructure cost, you retained your system, you become an end user, we provide a connection. You don't pay a connection fee. What you pay is the physical cost of the infrastructure from where it is to where it's got to go, and that's paid monthly over time. And it won't be 5 to 7 years, it'll be longer than that.
But wouldn't we still be borrowing the same amount of money to put in the line from Carmel Church down to the entrance of Caroline Pines?
We're going to have to borrow, yeah, let's say it's $3 million. Because the connection fees and the negative balances that we run for 10 years, I mean, we're not accomplishing, physically for us, it isn't accomplishing what I think we need to be mindful of at this point. And that's our debt ratio to infrastructure that we have in the ground. And I'm just saying that the other way to look at it, and you have a column on here of monthly water charges, commercial connections, and that $55 for the first year works out to covering, well, it doesn't even quite cover the $203,000 gross expense. But I mean, that's what we have to look at, is what that expense to us is, so that you all get water. It's going to be expensive, but you have the water that you need.
Well, the property owners at this point have been presented just with the option that we've discussed here, which is to pay their individual connection fee, $2,800, over a period of about 5 years. And then after that, we would simply be hooked into the, we would be hooked into the county water system. The county would own the entire system.
And I'm saying I don't know that I want to own it, because it runs a negative deficit for us for the next 10 years.
Mr. Seeley, if you look at the last column, which is the account balance, this is not looking at revenues versus expenses on a per year basis. This again is looking at the account balance, which always runs a positive balance. And even if we were to spread the connection fee charge over a 5-year period to break up that initial $1 million, the account balance would still run positive for the entire time. And to the extent that it might look like it wouldn't, there's already built in here $100,000, I believe it is, per year, pretty much, on the capital end, which essentially is discretionary, at least until we see how the balance, if it really is. But the balance, the account balance, the very last column, does not go negative. It stays positive.
Yeah, but Mr. Barshaw, if that worked out, we wouldn't have utility debt today. And I guess that's really my concern, is $25 million in utility debt. I don't know that we can afford to own another system. We already own a lot of disjointed systems that aren't connected together. And I don't know that I can take that leap and say we're going to own another system that we probably can't afford. I'm looking at, we provide one connection. The cost is whatever the cost works out to be, divide that up so that at the end of the time that infrastructure is paid for. They're still their own users, and at the end they would control their own destiny. I don't know that it's advantageous for us to own that, because that's just more maintenance. It's more issues down the road for us, and I think we've taken tremendous bites into those other arenas already that are going to cost us, that we're going to have to take care of. That's truly my concern. I would much rather see us one connection, whatever that cost is, divide it up, run it down, it gets added to the water bill. In 20 years that goes away. They're their own water system. They then take that revenue and they can decide how to do that as their own community, the way they were set up. I mean, they were chartered with their own water system. I understand what's going on. I'm looking at how to help you out and then give you back your water system so that we're not responsible. Because we've got enough pipe that we're responsible for.
Yeah, but Jeff, the problem is that we're trying to do this over time, and it brings us revenue over time, and the system, I don't know, do you guys have ductile liner in there? Is that what's in there now, or what kind of piping do you have in there?
What type of pipe?
Yeah, what kind of pipe do you have in there?
It's all PVC pipe.
It's all PVC plastic pipe, so it'll probably last 50-year life. Is that about right, John? 30, 50?
It might last more than 50, but 50 is probably what they would give as a life expectancy.
And so,
How long's it been in the ground?
well, I don't know how long it's been in the ground. So.
One section of it has been 15 years, another section about 25 years, and then the front section, which is like the beginning of Shannon Mill, if you're familiar, and the first couple streets is original.
Okay, so if you set up a sanitary district for them to pay for their own system, that doesn't mean that you give up the system when we get done. We're still providing them water, we're still providing them service. Part of that is that we could, if we put them in their own sanitary district, we can make part of their upgrades for their maintenance as part of the sanitary district, and they would have to come up with some way of either paying us outright through the association through their dues, or each individual would pay for that some way. But you don't want to try to just put a connection in there and say, okay, give up the system. You're still providing them water and service, and they have that now. I mean, they have to do that with Sidner or whoever. Why would we give up that revenue?
I don't see us giving up revenue because we're still providing water. And the other question is, do we have the water to really provide at this point? Because we still have water issues of our own at
I think the report
Belmont.
showed plenty capacity.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I may.
Yes.
I've heard this story Mr. Sealer is telling, this bedtime story Mr. Sealer is telling tonight. I've heard it before. The fact is, if this board in previous years had not had the foresight to put sewer lines and water lines in the ground, Caroline County would be in a terrible position today overall the county. We wouldn't have the development that we have in the county. I can tell you there's nobody, we wouldn't have Value City, we wouldn't have the development of Ladysmith, we wouldn't have the development of Carmel Church, because it just, I've often said, developers, they follow water and sewer lines like
Yeah, but
rats.
they
But,
haven't
I mean,
paid for the water and sewer lines that we have in the ground now.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
we're still paying that debt out of the general fund.
I think it was my turn next.
But I asked for permission from the chairman, and the chairman
Okay,
gave me
that's-
permission.
that's- all right,
we'll-
And the fact is,
Thank you both.
finding a source of water for the people in Caroline Pines is not an easy proposition. We run the lines down. We're able to have people hook on to those lines going to Caroline Pines. I can tell you the route, the new road, and that's where the lines are running, that's going to be development there. We can kid ourselves and say it's not, but it is going to be development there. And so that helps pay for the lines that are being run down there. So, I don't know what we're talking about as far as, we sell it to Lake Caroline. Absolutely, we sell water to Lake Caroline. But the lines had to run down the road already. We're selling to a company in Lake Caroline. It's different than the homeowner association.
Okay, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, because it grows later, and I get exponentially cranky as it gets late. So
What's
we're
new?
going to just try to work this through real quick. All you're really asking us to do right now is give you permission to look at the financing. You're not asking us to put the first pipe in the ground or make the first connection,
No.
okay?
Just
or
to
pay any
approve us
fee.
to move ahead with the funding applications so that we know we're going to have the money to do the thing.
If
can
it
move
was
on.
7:30, I'd have 14 questions to ask you, but at 11:15, I'm going to make a motion that we move ahead, allowing you to do the financial research and then present that back to the board.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Is this a PPEA project?
It's potentially that.
PPEA could be an option for us.
Those are,
Well, I know what they are.
aren't you glad I put that in motion? See, sometimes you agree with me. It just
I
takes
do,
a long
I
time.
do, sometimes I do, you're absolutely
All
right.
right, that was the motion, thank you.
Okay, just as a question that's out there, was the PP, with the Public-Private Education Facilities and Infrastructure Act an option for us to use?
It's
Yes.
certainly an option we can investigate, yes. Let me just tell you up front, it may or may not be the best option, but it's certainly something that we need to, look at.
Okay.
See what's the most economic way of doing it.
Okay,
But even if we do it that way, we still have to have funding in place,
Right.
okay.
so.
And regardless, I mean, we need, the folks that out there are desperate. And, we see that, and I think we do need to respond to this emergency. And I appreciate Mr. Aker's motion. Mr. Thomas?
Now, wait,
Motion.
I know at quarter
It
to
is
11,
late.
you don't think I look like Wayne.
It is late.
I move
And,
to adjourn
Mr.
right now,
Popovich,
packing up.
You second
I'm
that?
out of here. I'm packing up.
All right, motion made, properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey, John,
All right,
how far from the fair is this going to be if we do? Mile?
We're probably a mile and a half or so.
And you'll get that cost as a secondary thing, too,
okay,
the fair cost, right?
county administrative report everybody
No,
has.
We got 7A.
We have 7B,
7A and 7B. That's the road change?
that's right.
You want me to take that?
Yeah,
Should have been on the consent agenda.
it was.
Oh,
All
just-
right, who's going to address that topic? Is that Mr. Fincham's, or, I think I saw his name on it.
I can do it if Mr. Fincham doesn't want it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have item agenda 7A, which was added to your agenda this evening. It's a request for the assignment of a road name for a currently unnamed right-of-way, which serves 3 structures/uses, 2 of which really qualify for an address assignment under our street addressing ordinance. The principal affected properties would be the county fair and the Virginia Sports Complex. And when this item was first submitted to us back in May, we sent out inquiries concerning the proposed road name change, and the Virginia Sports Complex expressed opposition to this request. However, the Tates have requested that the road name change still proceed forward, which brings us to the Board of Supervisors. Staff believes that under the current ordinance, it technically does not qualify for the assignment of a road name. However, in accordance with Section 85-7, we believe that the board does have the authority to assign a road name to this unnamed right-of-way. Hence the reason this is on your agenda this evening, to provide direction to staff as to how you wish to proceed. and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, questions of staff? Change in order?
No problem. I mean, the other factor is that Mrs. Tate donated indirectly to the county $300,000 worth of land. I think it's a minor issue that we name a road after the fair, not even after her. Because if it was me, you'd be naming it Floyd Thomas Road for a long time, but for 300, well, you never got to 300,000, that's beside the point. But Mr. Fincham, in order for us to move ahead, you want a motion that we accept the assignment of road name, and that's satisfactory for you?
Yes, sir, in accordance with section 85-7.
Okay, in accordance with section 85-7, I would request that the board consider changing or making the road County Fair Lane in question.
Motion made and proper second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. Okay, we got,
What other items,
you got a lot, Mr. Hashcraft? 'Cause I need like a,
You have it.
oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we can read
the
yours.
commission-
Yeah, we can read
yeah.
yours.
The other thing I
Administrative
would,
reports in writing.
Mr. Chairman, the other thing I would like to call attention to is you have the comprehensive plan that was delivered to you this evening, and staff's kind of pleased with this document. I think it's really something that people from the outside of our county and within can find most of the information that you would want about us without ever visiting and then wanting to come and see what we're all about. And that's what the intention of the document was.
Okay.
Otherwise, my report was given to you yesterday as an addendum. And Mr. Thomas has a constituents meeting in between the next time the board meets. It's at 7 o'clock, is that correct, Tom?
7 o'clock at the
7.
Visitor Center on the 18th.
18th.
Where we'll be unveiling my Give You Suggestions webpage. So go to my webpage and you can give suggestions, please.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have closed meetings.
I need a 5-minute break.
Mr. Chairman, before
yeah.
board comments, before we do.
All right, closing board
go,
comments before we go
I
there.
just wanted to say that, we all received a copy of it in the board packet last night, I guess it was, or one day this week. The brochure that
Yeah.
Economic Development has put together.
Yes, very
And
good.
I am, and I know we all are, extremely proud of that document. It just portrays the county in such a positive light, absolutely, and has some great information. So we're proud of that brochure there. They did a tremendous job.
That's one of them. I got you.
Thank you. The
You
people in
haven't seen
Economic
anything like
Development.
that in Henrico.
We want you to advertise that because you don't see anything like that in Richmond. The way.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chairman, do we have a,
Oh,
I just
man.
handed it to him.
You want to do closing board comments?
yeah, Ms. Popovich, do you have any closing board comments? Did you hear from Mr. Akers?
No, sir.
Mr. Seeley?
No, sir.
Mr. Thomas? And I have none as well. Mr. Thomas? Mr. Vice Chairman?
You know, I hate reading all this stuff. I move that the board convene a closed meeting pursuant to the personnel exemption of section 2.2-3711A1, the Code of Virginia, to discuss the possible elimination of certain county positions due to budgetary constraints, and the consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff, section 2.2-3711-A7 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel involving the potential enforcement against the landowner of proffered conditions in connection with the rezoning, and briefings by staff in connection therein. Do I need to mention the names? And the status of the lawsuit by Carl Heflin against the county. Okay, that's my motion. Somebody second? We can go to closed.
Second.
Motion made and proper second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. We'll now go into closed meeting. Board will now reconvene. Board members want to certify that
We need a motion to come out.
can I have a motion to come out of,
Mr. Chairman,
Closed meeting.
I move that we come out of closed meeting.
Second.
Motion made, proper second. All in favor, we come out closed meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Board members want to certify that we only discussed things that we went into closed meeting for. Those are the only things discussed. Mr. Popowitz,
I so certify.
Mr. Akers, Mr. Sealy,
I so certify.
Mr. Thomas.
I so certify.
And the chair certifies as well. No action needed, Mr. Ashcraft? I understand it?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Motion
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made. Proper second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen.